So for this video, I want to focus on the Ace of Pentacles. And the Ace of Pentacles can also be known as the Ace of Disc or the Ace of Coins. But I want to take a look at the RWS deck first and talk about some of the symbols that are on that. Now, first of all, you have this huge pentacle right there in the middle being held by a hand coming out of the clouds. So what is a pentacle? A pentacle is a pentagram, which is a 5-pointed star surrounded by a circle. Now, the pentagram can represent different things. If we look at this diagram right here, you have the 5 elements surrounding it. So each point on the star is an element. So you have air, water, earth, and fire, but you also have spirit. Now, it could also represent the 5 senses because the 5 senses are what we use to interact with the physical world. Pentacles are mainly concerned with the earthly realm. And so we interact with that using taste, touch, hearing, smell, vision. Now, the number 5 is significant also because that is the number for the microcosm, which is basically Earth. Of all the elements, Earth is treated differently. As we look at the tree of life here, I'll put an image of it up. Down at the bottom, we have the Sephiroth for Earth. Now, notice that this particular Sephiroth has a combination of colors, whereas the other ones are all either red, yellow, blue, or some other variation. But that's because Earth is a mixture of the other elements. So if you have air, water, and fire, those things are more pure. But Earth contains all those components. And so we get that mixture. And I love how on the Tabula Mundi, it uses those colors very well. So if we look at the colors here, we have green, yellow, brown, and black, all representing the color palette for Earth. Now we have other colors as well, other earth tones, but I think that does a very good job of displaying that. And also on the Thoth deck, you have that same thing. We have that very earthy brown and green and yellow all being represented very well. Now the RWS system is a little bit different where it has that very bright blue background. So it kind of takes a different approach. So let's go back to the RWS card again. And we know that on Earth, we need resources. We need resources in order to sustain ourselves and to just basically survive here. And resources can be lots of different things. And one of the ways we typically think about when we think about getting these resources is with money. And so that's why coins are very popular on some decks when we're representing the pentacles. But it doesn't have to be just money. It can be other types of things that we use to gain resources as well. For example, time. There's a lot of debate about time. Does it really exist outside of the physical world or not? And is it something that we perceive because we're here? But coins also represent the heavy nature of being on Earth. Earth is a very dense place. And so as you go down the tree of life here, things become more dense and more solid. And that's just the way we feel when we're here. It's a bit of a heavy feel. So what could this mean in a reading? This could mean that you're being given a resource. It could mean that you need to focus on some aspect of the physical realm. It could mean that you need to manage your resources. Resource management is a big problem when it comes to dealing with the physical world. If you ask most people, are human beings doing a great job managing resources here? And they're probably going to say we could do way better, right? So that's something that I think could be coming up as far as, what you're going through. Are you utilizing every tool that you have in order to sustain yourself here? Or because that hand is reaching out, it could mean that maybe you can benefit from giving resources to someone else. So right now I want to focus on 4 cards. And one of my friends, Kate from dailytarotgirl, she was talking about the Temperance card, the Moon card, and she mentioned the Death card. And I want to point out that they have some similarities. So she was talking about the pathway that leads on the Moon card, the pathway that leads up to the mountain. And then she pointed out that also on the Death card, you have those same 2 towers there and the same pathway in the background. Now, that's a really interesting detail and it really connects these cards, but also it's on the Temperance card, you have that same thing. Now, the reason why I'm bringing these cards up is because also on the Ace of Pentacles, you have a pathway going up to a mountain as well. Now, I think that's really significant because these are the only 4 cards that I really see that have that obvious pathway leading to a mountain in the RWS system. So how are these cards connected? These cards are connected because, of course, there's a pathway there. So that means that we're going to have different paths in life. We're going to take different journeys. We're going to have different experiences and learn different things in life. And ultimately, it's going to transform us. We have the Death card here. It's going to temper us. We have the Temperance card. So what I mean by that is that we're going to be more prepared as we experience different things and be able to see the bigger picture. I like how there's this crown at the top of the mountain there. And when you get to the top of a mountain, you can see things a lot differently. You can see a different perspective. And then we have the Moon card, which is, of course, dealing with our shadow and growing from that. But I like how also on the Ace of Pentacles, that pathway dips down because it doesn't show that that experience is going to be the same for everyone. And I think that I wanted to place emphasis on that because it's important to honor the experiences of other people and to really allow them to grow in their own way and have their own sovereignty as far as this journey is concerned. So another thing that the Ace of Pentacles could be telling us is that maybe there's a need to ground. So in a reading, if you get that, it could be an indication that you have to take some time to be still and connect back with Earth, connect back with nature. And if we look at the Penumbra Tarot and if we look at the Tarot of the Abyss, it gives us this image of a tree. And on the Penumbra Tarot, you can see that the tree has all these roots. And so that's a representation of grounding. But I love on the Tarot of the Abyss how the person is also actually the tree, which represents the idea of being still, the idea of allowing your senses to connect with the earth. And so this helps us to be stable and to helps us to temper ourselves because life can throw a lot at us and it can be shocking. And so grounding yourself can relieve some of that shock. For example, we think about a wire. We think about how we ground wires so that when there's a surge of energy or electricity, it doesn't damage the product that we have plugged in or something that we want to use in the future because that can be overwhelming to the system. That helps us build a foundation, and foundation is extremely important, and the pentacles are often thought of as foundational or building blocks. I like how on the Tarot of Physics, they picked an atom. Atoms are the building blocks of matter, and they specifically picked carbon, which is what life on Earth is based on. Now, on the Science Tarot, they have formation. So they talk about Earth's formation and its foundation and how it came to be and all those things, how it, if we look back at that, it leads to what we have today. And so the things that we do now set up things for the future. And so if you get this in readings, maybe you can think about the foundation that you're setting now. And is this something that's going to help you in the future? Is it something that's going to be around or something that's going to be reliable? So the next thing here that we can't overlook is sunlight, or the sun in general, which provides power for all of this life. The energy runs through everything, and it is that basic source that animates all of this. And I love how on the Rosetta Tarot, it places emphasis on that because you have these 19 eyes going around this area right here. So what do those 19 eyes represent? Well, the number 19 is the number for the sun card. And the sun is the root of the powers of earth. And so if we look at the Tabula Mundi down here, it says root of the powers of earth. So the root of the power for earth is the sun. And looking at the sun card on the Tarot of Physics, we can see that it says sunlight is required for life on earth. And yeah, I mean, it's the source that we have, right? And also just getting sunlight is important. A lot of times we don't go out, and that's another way to ground, because grounding isn't just being in contact with the earth, it's also being in contact with the energy from the sun. So I found this card here from the 78 Tarot Ecological that I think has a great combination of all of these things. So it has that traditional RWS feel, but it also shows the power of the sunlight coming through. And it shows that grounding taking place with the hand coming from the ground. And I think that overall, it uses the colors really well by bringing in both the RWS colors and the earth tones of the Thoth system. So I really wanted to show you guys this one because I thought that it was just a great representation. So the element that I want to talk about that goes along with the Ace of Pentacles is radium. And if we look at the Elemental Hexagons deck, we can see that at the bottom, it says dangerous beauty. And I think that's really important for what I want to talk about next because it deals with how we use our resources. And in order to illustrate this, I want to talk about a story. And so that's the story of the Radium Girls. Now, you may have heard of them, but I want to talk about it just for a little bit. So back during World War I, soldiers had watches and they wanted to make these watches more practical. So they had these pocket watches, and at first they made them into wristwatches by putting a strap on them. And then later they said, well, we want soldiers to be able to see at night. So they wanted to illuminate the dials. Now, around this time, Marie Curie had discovered radium, and she presented it to these companies, and they thought of it, and they thought that they could use it as a possible solution to this problem. So there was a group of men that decided to open up a factory and have women come in and paint these dials. Now, they didn't give these women any type of protection, or they didn't even tell them that this radium was dangerous for them. And in fact, they told them that the radium was actually good for them, that it would make them healthy. And so these women would paint these dials, and the way they did it was they'd paint these numbers on, and they would lick the tip of their paintbrush in order to get a fine point on there to really place the numbers on there very accurately. And when they were doing that, they were exposing themselves to huge amounts of radiation. And so these women were absolutely devastated by the results of this radiation, to the point where many of them had to have their jaws removed and had a lot of problems with their bones just beginning to collapse and become very brittle. And they decided to sue the companies, but these really greedy men were counteracting this and trying to prevent them from getting any type of benefits from the terrible exposure that they went through. But they had to fight all the lawyers and just the power of this company, and it took a long time. But I wanted to point this out at the end because I think that's one of the most important things about the Ace of Pentacles, is that when we are given resources, you know, this hand coming out of the cloud, we have a choice. We have choices as to what we're going to do with them. And those can cause damage to Earth, but they can also cause damage to other people. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Will. This is Atypical Tarot. I'll see you next time.